Well, President Trump requesting an additional $8.6 billion to build the border wall in his 2020 budget plan. This amid his ongoing national emergency declaration that is facing opposition from both sides of the aisle. So will this new proposal earn any support? Republican Congressman James Comer joins me now live with more. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So as we begin our discussion, let's bring up where we can break down a little bit more about the border wall budget. The additional $8.6 billion for the wall, that's $5 billion from Congress, $3.6 billion from the military, and that would complete, we're told, more than 722 miles of the wall, all part of that $4.7 trillion budget plan. So what do you think are the chances of this passing?
Well, it's got overwhelming support among House Republicans. We passed a bill last Congress when the Republicans were in the majority to fund the border wall. There are only a handful of Republicans that are against it this time. There were, ironically, more last time, but they were defeated in the re-elections, which is a pretty good sign that the Republican base strongly supports the wall, and they support President Trump's efforts to secure the border. So, we've got Republican support, and I think we've got some Democrat support. There are a lot of Democrats that are in swing districts that won elections that would certainly be considered toss-up races moving forward. They realize that this liberal agenda that Pelosi and these radical new Democrats that have embraced socialism, among other things, are pushing is not a winner for their reelection. So I think there's a better chance than you would think for this bill to pass the House.
When you hear things like the first two stories that we did right before we brought you on, more than 500 criminals, including MS-13 members, rounded up in this massive operation through Interpol. And then here at home, ICE making the biggest cocaine bust in 25 years. You would think that Democrats and those Republicans that don't agree with declaring the national emergency would get on board.
You would think that. I'm on the Oversight Committee. We just heard from the Office of National Drug Control Policy Director Carroll last week about the drug epidemic in America. The drugs are clearly coming from the border. They're coming from all parts of Mexico, crossing the border illegally, where we have no wall, no barrier to prevent this. Democrats want to spend more money on rehab and all sorts of drug programs, but we can put a major stop to this program by impeding the border. This is what the American people want. I don't know what more it's going to take. The president is clearly drawing a line in the sand on this issue. I strongly support his efforts. If Congress will not fund the money for the border wall, I strongly support the president's efforts to declare a national emergency, because it is a national emergency. We have a terrible drug problem, and the majority of these drugs are clearly coming from Mexico.
Yeah, and let's talk about this other part of this proposed budget, though. The President Trump, he's proposing some vast work for benefit requirements. Do you think that he can get enough support to pass this major, what is it, an entitlement reform? And we can bring this up as you talk about it.
No, the taxpayers strongly support this. I'm on the Agriculture Committee as well. We tried to pass legislation last Congress when we passed the Farm Bill to put work requirements on able-bodied welfare recipients to require them to work 20 hours a week. What American wouldn't support that? But apparently the Democrats don't support that. They view that as racist. They view that as cruel. And it's just another slap in the face of working Americans. This is why we're going to see more and more working, tax-paying Americans continue to turn their backs on the Democrat Party in Washington. But hopefully this will support. I strongly support the president. And I know the Republican minority in the House supports work requirements on welfare recipients.
Yeah, well, it's just the beginning. Now the negotiation begins. And I've got to say, I was impressed. The acting White House budget chief said that the cuts involved in all this would amount to $2.7 trillion over a decade, and that's the largest proposed budget cut in the nation's history. So we'll see what happens.
Well, that's great. I mean, we have a spending problem in Washington, D.C. I applaud the president and Budget Director Mulvaney for taking a stand and trying to get spending under control. We cannot continue to spend more money than we take in.
You can't. I can't do it, so government shouldn't be able to do it either. Thank you, Congressman. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.